Further, he was the first person to appear on television, which most people don't realize. What year was that, and how did he decide to go on television? Because it was a brilliant move at the time.
Well, it was an experiment. They didn't know it was television. It had never worked. They were like, we actually have in West Branch, Iowa, the actual box itself. And there was a box with a transmission mechanism in Washington, D.C., and one in New York. He was Commerce Secretary, and I'm going to go with 1927. It might have been 1925. It was when he was Commerce Secretary. Dad, any thoughts?
It sounds great.
But he was a mining engineer. He innovated all of these technologies for mining that really transformed the mining profession at a time when mining, much like the tech era of today, which is really the Silicon Valley and all, this was the cutting edge technology, the cutting edge field of his day. And as Commerce Secretary as well, he believed that government could help make business more efficient. Not that it should get in the way, but that it should be an umpire in order to facilitate growth. And so this is what he dedicated himself to as Secretary of Commerce. And so he also standardized radio waves. He standardized traffic signs. He standardized the reason we get eggs in half dozens and quarts and liters is because Herbert Hoover decided, and bed sheets come in doubles and twins and queens, is because he didn't, but wives were getting these sheets and they couldn't fit the mattresses. There's this notion that government can be effective in standardizing daily living, and that will make all of us more.
Do you think your great-granddad, President Hoover, contributed to the Great Depression?
Okay, counterintuitive argument, or counterintuitive answer, I'm going to say, I think inevitably you have to say yes. And I think this is a very nuanced, it's not a nuanced question. It's an easy question, but I think one of the biggest fallacies and mistakes we make when we look at Herbert Hoover in the context of his presidency is judging him with knowledge that we have now, based in the context of a time when simply that knowledge wasn't available. And the reality is the study of modern economics has developed much, especially macroeconomics, as a result of the lessons that we've all taken away from the Great Depression. Keep in mind, Keynes wasn't even writing. Keynes was beginning to formulate his theories, but he first reached out to FDR in the 40s. In the 30s, in the late 30s. Milton Friedman, the Chicago School of Economics, all of these theorists and all these ideas of macroeconomics developed as a result of the Great Depression, and Herbert Hoover simply didn't have that tool belt at his disposal. I think there are three things that he did that I think he's pegged with. The first thing he did was, as soon as the stock market crashed, he had executives come to Washington and he encouraged them to hold wages where they were. The second thing he's pegged for is Smoot-Hawley, which is, of course, the international trade bill that the Congress passed that he signed, that Amity Schley says he should have known better. He was a globalist. He should have known this was going to hurt international trade and going to hurt the economy. He shouldn't have ever signed it. Although some economists say this was less than 4% of our economy at the time, and maybe its effects have been overstated. And then the last thing he did was he let the Coolidge tax cut sunset in 1932, and it amounted to the largest tax hike on individuals, it took the bottom rate from 25% to 66%. At the depths of the Great Depression in 1932. Actually, the depths of the Great Depression, let's be clear, were in 1936 and 1937 under FDR. But during the Hoover presidency, thanks for that. But during the Hoover presidency, we've learned from that. We learned that we don't raise taxes in a depression. But what I will say in Hoover's defense is that he actually had wages hold. When he did that was through voluntary cooperation. It's not that he forced legislation down the throats of businesses or demanded that business react in a certain way legislatively. It was through voluntary cooperation, and this is something that Herbert Hoover championed. The other criticism of him is that he didn't do much. He really sat on his hands throughout the whole thing, and that couldn't be further from the truth. And the New York Times even said at the end of 1930, no president could have done more, and he was better than any of his predecessors would have.